Welcome, everybody. Welcome to Unstoppable Live. Hi, Mo. You got your coffee? Oh, your
I
coffee
do
color
have a
matches your
coffee,
shirt.
Simon.
That's
Good morning
beautiful.
on this side. Good afternoon to you.
Yeah, thank you. So, last week we were talking about frustration. We were talking about using our breath to be able to manage in some way our frustration. When that frustration digs in, being able to slow down, step back, and just take 3 deep breaths. And that was our challenge last week, was just to do some breathing, to take those 3 deep breaths and be able to just disappear down out of our head. Because one of the magical, amazing things about our brain is that it makes stuff up. It makes up some terrible things sometimes. And when that frustration arises, that we're having problems with working through our math problem, or we are having uh, a a dispute, should we say, with our brother or sister, or they're just being really annoying and frustrating at home, and we're not quite sure how to deal with it, and that frustration starts digging in. One thing that can add to that frustration, instead of taking it away, like our breath, like breathing deeply, one of the things that can add to that frustration is the words that might come up in our head. And we have a name for that. We call that the criticizer. It's that criticizing voice, which when you're trying to work through that math problem, you can't quite get it. It's going to tell you some stuff. Oh, you're stupid. I'm stupid. The person sitting next to me, they worked it out faster than me. They're cleverer than me. I'm not clever enough, etc., etc., etc. Your brain will start making stuff up, guys. And the other part of us, which is where we were trying to get you down to last week, which is the unstoppable part of us, which is the what we call the champion, which is that unstoppable champion part of us, which is usually the quieter side, the silent side. It's that knowing side. It's that when we have the math problem or the problem with our brother or sister that's making us frustrated, it's that calmness inside us that knows that we've got this, that we can sort this out, that we can find a solution, that we can be creative and we can work it out. So, yeah, that's what we're talking about this week. There's a whole bunch of names around around these things, around the champ. But this week we'll just keep with the champion and the criticizer. And yeah, tell us a story about that, Mo.
Well, it's funny that you say this, Simon, because I have both a personal story from my own experience as a young, eager student who always wanted to do so well in
Mhm.
school. I wanted to be the teacher's favorite and one of the smartest kids in the class. And sometimes,
And we all.
people look at me now because I'm very much a champion for learning. And they don't even believe me when I tell them that there was a time when I look back and I was so defeated. So I have taught a lot of students, and I could tell student stories, Simon, and I've got one where I saw a kid go from that champion to the criticizer, from the criticizer to the champion.
Yeah,
But
tell your student
I'm going
story.
to
I'd love to
tell,
hear that.
I don't know. I'm like so conflicted because a part of what I want to share is what was going on in my own mind.
Okay,
So
you
a
choose.
little bit of both. I'll do a little bit of both because I
A bit
don't
of
know
both.
what's going on in the mind of the student that I worked with, but I'll tell my story first and then tell a little bit of hers. So when I was in the sixth grade, so here in the United States, I would have been 11. I went to a school for all sixth graders. So everyone in the building was my peer. That was a lot of anxiety, right?
Wow.
Everybody was the same age. Everybody's opinion mattered. Everybody were kids that I thought I wanted to, impress and be
Impressed.
cool to.
Hmm.
So I was in sixth grade in a notorious man's class. His name was Mr. Malprez. School in Florida,
Mr.
and
Who?
Mr. Malprez.
Malpress. Oh
And
my
I will
gosh.
never forget the day that I was standing in front of the board for what felt like the first time in my life.
Hmm.
The really old green chalkboard that used to
Uh-huh.
be in the classrooms before dry erase boards with the yellow crayon, the yellow piece of chalk. I was in front of the board and I had to solve the problem 8 times 4.
Hmm.
I had to solve the problem 8 times 4. And
Was
for
it
all
really
of
that?
this,
Are you just making that up, or can you
no,
actually
this is
remember that it was
literally the
that?
moment. I'm taking you back. This is exactly what I
Wow.
was experiencing. So the problem was 8 times 4, which was the simplest of basic facts that kids typically memorize between second and third grade here.
Yeah.
And I worked really hard on my facts. I would say that while I was not a pro at my facts, I knew my facts. But on that day, standing in front of the board, I wasn't thinking 8 times 4. What's 8 times 2? What's 8 times 3? What's 8 times 4? I wasn't thinking anything like that. I was thinking, you're so stupid. You don't know this. You're not fast enough. Everybody else in here is smarter than you. Mr. Malprez hates your guts. Like I was saying
Wow.
all of the nastiest things imaginable. And I
Criticizer.
can still, like, thinking about that right now, I can still feel what it felt like in my body because I wanted to like get out of me all at once. Like if I could have just vaporized and disappeared under a rock or into the sky, I would have been a much happier person.
Yeah.
It took me multiple times. So I kept writing 34. I'm standing at the board. I'm in a panic. I'm 2 points off.
Making me think
And
now.
Mr. Malprez with his tie long, he wore a long formal tie with his, shirt tucked in and a formal belt and dress slacks. Like he looked like he was a CEO. He's standing like this with his hands. That's not correct. He's not doing anything particularly devious, but in that moment, I'm having like, I
Apart from
might
just
as well
being
be on
there.
fire. I might
Yeah.
as well be on fire. What
Yeah.
I want to tell you is, Simon, I never got the problem right. I went back to my seat in shame. I did not experience, let me turn this around, nor did Mr. Malprez take me under his wing and say, look, kid, I saw what was happening with you. I know what's going on. Let me help you,
Yeah.
right?
But he didn't see the champion.
Experiences like that turned
And
me
neither do
into
you.
a person. I had more moments of what I would call extreme challenge and personal defeat, where I criticized myself and it didn't help me be successful with the subject through my middle school. And I started to turn things around over time. Okay, I did. And ultimately, I shifted from this is not going to beat me to I'm going to find a way to figure this out. And for me, it took a while. But what happened is that in that process, once I learned and understood that I actually could master math, um, and that I needed to perhaps find different strategies or calm myself down and say the positive messages and be in the best state so that I could think clearly, I actually learned how to tackle those kinds of challenges. And I became committed to wanting to help other kids who felt like they couldn't do better. So fast forward to the other story of a student that I want to tell. Many years later, when I was teaching fourth grade, which would have been students who were about 9 years old,
Mhm.
there was a kid who, for the sake of I didn't ask permission to share this story, we'll just call her Lainey.
Mhm.
So Lainey is in class, and the moment happens where I get to be in the role of Mr. Malprez.
Uh-huh.
I call on Lainey to answer a question and demonstrate for the class, which is pretty typical behavior in classrooms. You want
Yeah.
the kids to be engaged. So Lainey is at the board, and I see and for a moment almost relive the state of panic. She is
Wow.
not saying the things that she's thinking out loud, but I can see her experiencing that you're dumb. You're never going to get this right. Math is too hard for you. You can't do this. So instead of standing back with my hands folded, like Mr. Malprez did back in the day before we knew about breathing, I started the process of working with Lainey and just asking her, look, I'm going to let the pressure off. I know you're not even thinking about this problem. It's really not that you can't do it. It's that you're so stressed right now and you're telling yourself you can't. So what I want you to do is take a deep breath. So I helped her. Like I was the friend who said, I'm going to step in this space with you and helped her. So fast forward, she got better and better at giving herself the space and starting to adopt the idea, I'm going to find a way to do this. I bet if I practice, I can get it. And I'll just tell you the moment of triumph. There was a day in class because I loved the classrooms that I taught. We had such beautiful communities where the kids supported and encouraged each other. We were spending all day together, so we knew what we were good at and what we weren't good at. And in this instance, she was called on to solve a problem, and by now had been getting better and better at it, but she still wasn't completely there. And on this one day, I asked her to solve a complex problem from the class, and I just said to the class out loud, Lainey, if you stick in here and you give this your best shot, when you finish it, I'm going to do a cartwheel in the cafeteria in front of everybody at lunchtime. I don't really know if that was the thing that did it for her, but this was the moment where, again, from the outside, I could see that persistence showing up. I couldn't, if her brain was a computer and I could see the words running across, it was all of this. Come on, you know the next step. Let's just work on it. Think clearly. What did you do last? What do you do next? She got through that problem. And we were in the classroom like, yes, you did it. Yay. And she was beaming, the absolute opposite of that red in the face, frustrated person that she was the first day I realized she had the similar experience to me. So then to celebrate the end of it, right? Like I just totally let it go. Totally let it go. And then when I went to pick the class up from lunch without any warning, they were all lined up to exit the cafeteria, and their fantastic, crazy teacher popped a whole cartwheel right in the middle of like the pay line. I don't know. Wow. It was in the middle of the whole thing. And of course, everybody erupted in cheers because I think we all just love to see that champion version of ourselves and others. And I love that I got to have that experience and work through it. And then also turn that into helping somebody else, seeing someone else when they were having a similar difficulty, being the criticizer, and then becoming the champion. So
yeah, I love that.
That's my juicy story.
Yeah, wow. Wow. So yeah, you really helped the student through there and kind of flip the script on what Mr. Malpass taught you on how to be a teacher.
Yeah.
You kind of became another version.
Yeah.
But yeah, so listen, guys, you might not be fortunate enough to have somebody like Monique as a teacher, or even anybody like that in your life. Everybody around you might be a Mr. Malpass. Everybody around you. But the reality of the situation is that it doesn't matter how many times a Monique as a beautiful teacher, or your mom or your dad or your sister or your brother or your friends, tell you that you got this, that that it's amazing. It helps. It helps, guys. Having somebody there who's got your back is one of the greatest things, one of the greatest ways to be a friend, to be an inspiration to somebody else, is to have their back, to see that in them already, to see that champion within them when they can't, to shine the light in when the room's dark. But guys, that might not always happen. And in fact, it might never happen. And so we have got to learn ourselves how to actually be able to flip that script in our own heads so we can take control. Because at the end of the day, a thought is just a thought. And like I said at the beginning, and like Monique just pointed out when she was standing at the front of the class, your mind can really just lay into you. That criticizer can really get going. And when it does, well, we've got two options. Either we can just kind of believe it, we can just be it, we can be, not clever enough, not smart enough, not tall enough, not, blah, 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 blah. Or we can catch ourselves. We can catch ourselves and we can just hear our brain going off. We'll go into this a lot later in later editions about why that actually happens. But our brain will do that automatically. Everybody's brain does that. And so being able to take that step back, and let's go back to what we were talking about last week with the frustration. So when we hear those negative voices in our head, the criticizer going off at us, if we can actually take a step back from it and actually go, oh, there goes my brain again. There he goes. The old criticizing brain going again. And once we can call it for what it is and take that step back and look at it, then we can actually take the next step, which is to take those three breaths. Those 3 deep breaths to bring us down out of our head, like we talked about last week, bring us down out of our head, and even just focus on kind of the sound that your breath is making.
Mm-hmm.
And then we can start locking in to that champion. Instead of locking into the criticizer, we can start locking into that champion. And it's more a feeling. Your champion isn't going to suddenly spring out. It might do, but if you're in a frustrating situation like that and your brain's going off, then you need to sink down and you need to start connecting with that unstoppable silent champion that's inside you. If you haven't got anybody else telling you about it, if you haven't got anybody else seeing that in you, then you can do it yourself. But this first step is always, always having that awareness and being able to take a step back and understand that it's just your brain going off again, the criticizer going off again.
Yeah. So, Simon, I don't know, but it seems like we're establishing a pattern where we love a challenge.
Yeah.
And I guess it's because whenever we experience something challenging or when we have something new that we consider or that we learn, it helps us be bigger, stronger, and more unstoppable when we go practice it, when we try it
Mm.
out. So I have an idea for a challenge this week. What do you
Go.
think? I maybe
Yeah.
challenge everybody?
Just lay it down.
Okay, guys. So here's the deal. By now, if you've seen our previous episodes, you're aware that we have this great place that we have created to encourage each other and to practice. It's called the Inspiration Station, and you can easily find it here on our YouTube channel by clicking the more under details and information. And there is a direct link to the Inspiration Station. That place is where you will find the challenge that I'll tell you about right now. What I would love for you to do, taking from the story that I shared and the strategy that Simon at the beginning and just now outlined for us about how do we take that shift from the criticizer that is in every one of us to the champion that I believe, and I think Simon believes, is also in every one of us. Well, what I'm going to suggest that you do this week is join us on the Inspiration Station. Leave us a story, a post, a comment, a video, a picture, something that represents or expresses a time that you're going to have this week. I'm not challenging you about the past, I'm challenging you in the now. This week, I want you to at least once notice when the criticizer is talking to you about something. It may not be math like it was for me when I was small. For you, it might be something related to sport, it might be science, it might be a friendship thing. Hey, wait a second. Maybe there's bullies at your school. I don't care where you apply this, it's going to work. I want you to find an example this week and just see if you can notice when the criticizer shows up. And I want you to tell me what happens after that. Maybe after this discussion, you will be inclined to respond in a certain way. It'll be interesting. I'm not going to tell you how you should respond. I'm really curious about how you choose to respond. And if you're willing, share that. Okay. If you happen to notice someone else in your environment have a moment where the criticizer shows up and you can see that person, like I did with Lainey, shift to the champion, you can also celebrate somebody else's story, because we're all about uplifting ourselves and others. So tell your story from this week. Practice intentionally noticing when the criticizer shows up. And let's just see what you're inclined to do in that moment when you see it. You can do it as many times as you like. I would like for you to tell us about it at least once. Does that sound like a pretty
Wow.
simple way to engage, Simon?
Yeah, that sounds amazing. Yeah. Yeah, I
Fantastic.
love that. Yeah, so what do you think, guys? This week, that's an easy challenge, or is it? We'll find out.
Yeah.
And even if you have the Mr. Malpass, we all have Mr. Malpass in our life. Even if you have a Monique, who's going to help you through it, who's going to see and recognize that champion in you. Well, you know, you can take control and you can do it yourself, guys. It doesn't matter who you got around you. It doesn't matter your circumstances, what you're going through right now. You can do this challenge, and I want you to tell us about it. So, guys, it's been great. We've got loads more tricks up our sleeves. So,
Literally.
we've got loads more tricks up our sleeves. We've got a lot of miles to run on this one. But yeah, haven't got that this week. And yeah, just remember, guys, yeah, you're bold.
You're brave and
You're
you're
unstoppable.
unstoppable.